The bridge of the Zephyrian command vessel, Stellar Crown, hummed with quiet efficiency. Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive view screen, his forearms clasped behind his back as he watched the empty void of space. The fleet's most advanced sensors had detected something impossible 3 hours ago. A single ship approaching from the outer rim, moving faster than anything in their databases. "Admiral," Communications Officer Yelsa called out, her voice tight with concern. "The unknown vessel is still not responding to our hails. It's maintained complete radio silence for the past 2 hours. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in irritation. In his 40 years commanding the Galactic Council's enforcement fleet, no ship had ever ignored their authority. The Council represented 12 different species across 3 star systems. Their word was law. "Distance?" he asked. 50,000 kilometers and closing," replied Navigator Felton, his scaled hands dancing across holographic controls. "Admiral, I'm reading something strange about this ship's design." "Elaborate." Felton's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's massive, sir. Our sensors indicate it's nearly 12 kilometers long. That's 3 times larger than our flagship. But here's what doesn't make sense. It appears to be constructed from materials we can't identify." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. 12 kilometers. The largest ship in the Council fleet measured 4 kilometers from bow to stern, and it required a crew of 15,000 beings to operate effectively. "Sir," Yelsa interrupted, "I'm detecting multiple energy signatures from the vessel. Whatever it is, it's heavily armed." Kethvar moved closer to the tactical display. Red dots peppered the outline of the unknown ship like a disease. Each dot represented a weapon system powerful enough to destroy a city. "How many weapons are we looking at?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Estimated 2,000 individual firing points, Admiral. Maybe more. Our computers keep revising the count upward." The Admiral's blood ran cold. The entire Council fleet combined possessed fewer than 800 weapons. This single ship outgunned them by more than 2 to 1. "Open a channel to the fleet," Kethvar ordered. "All ships are to maintain formation but ready all defensive systems. If this vessel is hostile, we need to be prepared." As Yelsa worked, at her station, Kethvar stared at the approaching ship on the main screen. It moved with purpose, cutting through space like a knife through flesh. Its hull appeared dark, almost black, with angular surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Admiral," Felton said suddenly, "the ship is slowing down. It's stopping just outside our weapons range." Kethvar felt his heart's pounding. Whoever commanded that vessel knew exactly how far Council weapons could reach. They had done their homework. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Yelsa announced, her voice barely above a whisper. "Put it through." The view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something none of them had ever seen before. The creature on screen stood upright on 2 legs with pale skin and strange, small eyes set in a narrow face. It wore what appeared to be a dark uniform with symbols they didn't recognize. When it spoke, the words came through their universal translator, but something felt different about the voice. It carried an edge of controlled power that made every being on the bridge take an unconscious step backward. "Greetings. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Ship, Humanity's Will. We represent the human species of the Sol system. We come seeking dialogue with the Galactic Council." Kethvar found his voice after a moment of shocked silence. "This is Admiral Kethvar of the Council Enforcement Fleet. Your ship was not detected by our long-range sensors until a few hours ago. How did you travel undetected through Council space?" The human's face remained expressionless. "We prefer to observe before making contact. Our intelligence suggests the Council governs this region of space. We wish to establish diplomatic relations." "Intelligence?" Kethvar's voice rose slightly. "What intelligence? How long have you been watching us?" Captain Chen's small mouth curved upward in what might have been a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Long enough, Admiral. We know about your species, your technology, your military capabilities. We know about the Council's expansion policies and your enforcement methods." The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. The Council's activities were supposed to be confidential. Their enforcement methods were particularly sensitive. The subjugation of primitive worlds was not something they advertised. I wasn't aware. Humans existed, Kethvar said carefully. Most aren't, Chen replied. We're newcomers to this part of the galaxy, but we're fast learners. Behind the Admiral, Navigator Felton whispered urgently to his console operator. Sir, I'm detecting massive power signatures from their ship. Whatever drives that thing, it's generating more energy than our entire fleet combined. Chen continued, speaking as if she hadn't heard. We propose a meeting. Your representatives and ours can discuss terms for peaceful coexistence. Terms? Kethvar couldn't keep the surprise out of his voice. The Council doesn't negotiate terms with individual species. We offer membership or alternative arrangements. For the first time, Chen's expression changed. Her eyes seemed to grow colder, more focused. Admiral, I don't think you understand. We're not asking to join your council. We're informing you that humanity exists, and we're establishing the terms under which we'll coexist with your organization. The bridge of the stellar crown erupted in whispered conversations. No species had ever spoken to the council this way. Not once in the 200 years since its formation. Captain Chen, Kethvar said, trying to maintain his diplomatic composure. Perhaps you don't fully grasp the situation. The Council has authority over 17 star systems and 43 inhabited worlds. We have the largest military force in this sector. Cooperation with our policies isn't optional. Chen's image on the screen didn't waver. Admiral, perhaps you don't fully grasp our situation. Let me help you understand. The screen went black. Suddenly, every alarm on the bridge began screaming, at once. Chapter 2. Demonstration of Power. What's happening? Admiral Kethvar shouted over the cacophony of warning sirens. Navigator Felton's hands flew across his controls, his voice cracking with panic. Sir, the human ship just appeared on our starboard side. It moved faster than our sensors could track. That's impossible, Kethvar snapped. Nothing can move that fast in normal space. Admiral, Communications Officer Yelsa called out. Captain, Chen is requesting to continue our conversation. The view screen flickered back to life, showing the human captain's calm face. Behind her, Kethvar could see what appeared to be a massive bridge filled with strange equipment and dozens of crew members. As I was saying, Chen continued as if nothing had happened. Perhaps a demonstration would help clarify our position. Oh, how? Did you move your ship so quickly? Kethvar demanded. We call it emergency translation, Chen replied matter-of-factly. It's one of several propulsion systems we've developed, but let's focus on more immediate concerns. On the tactical display, Kethvar could see the human ship had indeed moved. It now sat alongside the Council fleet, close enough that he could make out details of its hull through the view screen. The ship was even more intimidating up close. Its surface seemed to ripple with energy patterns, and weapon ports glowed with barely contained power. Admiral? Tactical Officer Grixam spoke up, his voice trembling. Their weapons are charging. Multiple systems are coming online. Chen's voice remained steady. Don't be alarmed. We're simply preparing a small demonstration. Please observe the asteroid field approximately 50,000 kilometers to your port side. Kethvar turned to look at the designated coordinates. The field contained roughly 30 large asteroids, each one several kilometers in diameter. His fleet had been using it for target practice earlier in the week. Target selected, Chen announced. Initiating precision strike. The human ship didn't appear to fire anything. There was no visible beam, no projectile, no energy discharge that their sensors could detect. But suddenly, one of the largest asteroids simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not shattered into pieces. It was there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never existed. The bridge fell completely silent. The asteroid has been converted to its component atoms and dispersed, Chen explained casually. The process is quite efficient. No debris, no radiation, no environmental contamination. Kethvar stared at the empty space where a mountain-sized chunk of rock had existed seconds before. His entire fleet couldn't have destroyed that asteroid so completely, even working together. That's not possible, he whispered. Admiral, may I speak plainly? Chen's voice carried a tone of patience, like a teacher addressing a confused student. Your council has been expanding through this region for 2 centuries. You locate primitive civilizations, demand their submission, and if they refuse, you demonstrate superior firepower until they comply. It's an effective strategy against species with inferior technology. Kethvar's mandibles clicked nervously. Everything she said was accurate. Chen continued. However, this approach assumes you'll always possess the superior technology. Today, that assumption no longer holds true. What do you want? Kethvar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Coexistence, Admiral. We want to establish clear boundaries and rules of engagement. Humanity has no interest in your current territories, but we require assurance that the Council will not interfere with our expansion or our interests. The ET Council doesn't negotiate with individual species, Kethvar repeated, but his words sounded hollow even to himself. Chen's expression softened slightly. Admiral, I understand this is difficult. Your entire worldview is being challenged. But consider your options carefully. We could have approached this situation very differently. She gestured to something off-screen, and the tactical display updated to show new information. Kethvar's legs nearly gave out when he saw the data. We currently have 17 ships stationed throughout Council space, Chen explained. They've been observing your activities for the past 6 months. Each one is similar in capability to the humanity's will. If we had intended harm, your fleet would have been eliminated before you knew we existed. 17 ships, each one capable of deleting asteroids from existence. Each one apparently able to move faster than their sensors could track. This is Admiral Kethvar to all ships, he said into his communicator. Stand down all weapons. I repeat, stand down all weapons and assume defensive positions only. A wise decision, Chen nodded approvingly. Now shall we discuss the terms of our coexistence agreement? Before Kethvar could respond, his communications officer interrupted urgently. Admiral, we're receiving priority transmissions from Council Central Command. They want an immediate status report. Chen's image flickered slightly. Ah, yes, your superiors. We've been monitoring their communications as well. They're quite concerned about the reports of an unknown vessel in their territory. You've been monitoring secure Council communications? Kethvar asked incredulously. Your encryption is adequate for keeping secrets from other Council species, Chen replied. However, it presents minimal challenge for our systems. We've been reading your classified communications for months. The Admiral felt the last of his confidence evaporate. If humans had been watching and listening to everything the Council did, they possessed detailed knowledge of military positions, defensive capabilities, political structures, and strategic weaknesses. Admiral, Yelsa whispered urgently, Council Central Command is demanding to speak with you immediately. They're threatening disciplinary action if you don't respond. Chen appeared to consider this information. Perhaps it would be beneficial if I spoke with your superiors directly. We can establish the new reality of this region all at once, rather than working through multiple levels of bureaucracy. The Council High Command doesn't speak directly with unknown species, Kethvar protested weakly. Chen's smile returned, but this time it seemed genuinely amused. Admiral, I think you'll find that many of the Council's previous policies are about to change. Patch me through to your High Command. Kethvar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Every single one of them wore the same expression of stunned disbelief. Everything they had known about their place in the galaxy had been turned upside down in the span of an hour. Open the channel, he ordered. As Yelsa worked at her station, Kethvar found himself wondering what his superiors would say when they learned that humanity's first contact with the galactic community involved a single ship outgunning their entire fleet. More importantly, he wondered what would happen when they learned that 17 more just like it were already positioned throughout their territory. The channel opened, and Chen's image disappeared from their screen, replaced by the familiar conference room where the Council's 5 High Commanders made their decisions. Admiral Kethvar, the voice of High Commander Veltar echoed through the bridge. Explain this unauthorized contact immediately. High Commander, Kethvar began, then stopped. How could he possibly explain what had just happened? Chen's voice cut through his hesitation, clear and confident. High Commander Veltar, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. I represent humanity, and I believe it's time we had a conversation about the future of this region. The silence that followed was so complete that Kethvar could hear his own heart's beating. Chapter 3. The Council's Response, the Emergency. Session of the Galactic Council convened within 6 hours, the fastest response time in their recorded history. High Commander Veltar sat at the center of the curved council chamber, flanked by representatives from all 12 member species. The massive holographic display showed tactical information that had arrived from Admiral Kethavar's fleet, but none of it made sense. Let me understand this correctly, High Commander Veltar said, his voice carrying across the chamber. A single unknown vessel approached our enforcement fleet, demonstrated technology that our scientists claim is impossible, and now demands to negotiate directly with this council. Fleet Admiral Zexara, the council's highest military authority, leaned forward in her seat. Her cybernetic implants glowed softly as she accessed combat databases. High Commander, the reports from the field are concerning. This human ship allegedly destroyed a large asteroid using an undetectable weapon system. No energy discharge, no projectile signature, no residual radiation. Allegedly? Veltar's tone sharpened. Sir, our sensors recorded the event, but we cannot explain how it occurred. The asteroid simply ceased to exist at the atomic level. Council member Jethrin from the mining consortium spoke up. Perhaps their sensors malfunctioned. A single ship cannot possess the energy output described in these reports. Fleet Admiral Zexara's expression darkened. Council member Jethrin, I've served in the fleet for 30 years. I know sensor malfunctions from weapons demonstrations. This was not a malfunction. The chamber erupted in multiple conversations as representatives whispered urgently among themselves. The council had built its authority on technological and military superiority. The idea that a single unknown species could challenge that superiority was unthinkable. Order, Veltar called out. We will hear from Admiral Kethvar directly. He activated the long-range communication system. Admiral, report your current status. Kethvar's image appeared on the main display. Even through the holographic projection, his stress was obvious. High Commander, the human vessel remains alongside our fleet. Captain Chen has been patient while waiting for this session to convene. Patient? Veltar couldn't keep the incredulity out of his voice. Admiral, you're allowing an unknown alien to dictate terms to the Galactic Council? Sir, with respect, I don't think we're in a position to dictate anything to them. The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. Admiral Kethvar commanded the Council's most powerful fleet. If he felt powerless against a single ship, what did that mean for their entire civilization? Admiral, Fleet Admiral Zexara interjected. What is your tactical assessment of this human vessel? Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. Fleet Admiral, in my professional opinion, this single ship could destroy our entire fleet without sustaining damage. Their technology appears to be centuries ahead of ours. That's impossible, Council member Yathara protested. Our intelligence networks monitor all advanced civilizations in this sector. We would have detected such technology development. High Commander, Kethvar continued. Captain Chen claims they have 17 similar vessels positioned throughout Council space. They've been observing us for months without detection. The chamber fell silent. If true, it meant humanity had infiltrated their territory completely while remaining invisible to their best detection systems. Sir, Kethvar added quietly, they've also been monitoring our classified communications. They appear to know everything about our military capabilities and political structure. Veltar felt his confidence crumbling. Every advantage the Council possessed, superior technology, numerical superiority, strategic intelligence, had apparently been neutralized by a species they'd never heard of. Put me in direct communication with this Captain Chen, he ordered. The display shifted, and suddenly they were looking at the human captain. She sat in what appeared to be a command chair, surrounded by strange equipment and beings that looked like her. Her small eyes seemed to take in every detail of the council chamber. "High Commander Veltar," Chen said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Thank you for making time to speak with me." "Captain Chen," Veltar replied, struggling to maintain his diplomatic composure. "You've made some extraordinary claims about your capabilities. Before we discuss any arrangements, perhaps you could provide additional demonstration of your technology." Chen's expression didn't change. "Of course. What would you like to see?" Fleet Admiral Zexara leaned forward. "Our long-range sensors show 17 objects in council space that we cannot identify. Can you prove these are your vessels?" "Certainly." Chen made a gesture to someone off-screen. "All ships, please transmit identification signals on council frequencies." Suddenly, tactical displays throughout the chamber lit up with new contacts. 17 massive signatures appeared simultaneously near major council worlds, military installations, and trade routes. The positions were perfect for either observation or attack. "Each of these vessels has been monitoring your activities for approximately 6 months," Chen explained calmly. "We've observed your expansion protocols, enforcement methods, and technological capabilities." Council member Crixtel, representing the industrial worlds, spoke up nervously. "Captain Chen, what are your intentions toward council territory?" "We have no interest in your current holdings," Chen replied. "However, we require assurance that the council will not interfere with human expansion or attempt to enforce your authority over our worlds. The council has governed this region for 2 centuries, Veltar said, his voice rising. "We cannot simply ignore new species that appear in our space." Chen's expression hardened slightly. "High Commander, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're not asking for permission to exist. We're informing you that humanity has arrived in this region, and we're establishing the parameters for peaceful coexistence. And if the Council doesn't agree to these parameters," Fleet Admiral Zexara asked. Chen was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried a note of regret. "Fleet Admiral, we sincerely hope that won't be necessary. But humanity has survived and thrived by being prepared for any eventuality." The tactical display updated again, showing new information about the human ships. Power signatures that dwarfed anything in the Council's arsenal. Weapon systems that their computers couldn't classify. Defensive capabilities that appeared to violate known physics. "Captain Chen," Veltar said carefully, "perhaps we could arrange a formal diplomatic meeting. Representatives from both sides could discuss terms more traditionally." Chen nodded approvingly. "An excellent suggestion. We propose a meeting at the neutral trading post on Kepler Station. It's equidistant from our respective territories and has facilities suitable for multi-species conferences." "Kepler Station is within council space," Council member Jethrin protested. "Actually," Chen replied with that slight smile, "Kepler Station is an independent facility. Our research indicates it maintains neutrality specifically to serve as a meeting point for different civilizations." Veltar realized that once again, the humans knew more about Council territory than they'd initially revealed. Their intelligence was frighteningly comprehensive. "Very well," he agreed. "We'll send a diplomatic team to Kepler Station within the week." "Excellent. We'll have representatives waiting." Chen's image began to fade. "Oh, and High Commander, I should mention that several other species in this region have already established diplomatic relations with humanity. You may want to coordinate with them regarding the new territorial arrangements." The screen went black, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. "Other species?" Veltar whispered. Fleet Admiral Zexara was already accessing intelligence databases. "Sir, we're detecting unusual communication patterns from the Altarian Republic and the Centauri Alliance. They've been unusually quiet in recent months. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. If humanity had already established relationships with other major powers in the region, the Council might find itself diplomatically isolated." "Prepare our best diplomatic team," Veltar ordered. and begin full analysis of all intelligence we have on human capabilities. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." As the emergency session adjourned, each council member returned to their quarters with the same thought. The galaxy had just become a much more complicated place. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the humanity's will, Captain Chen turned to her first. "Officer, how did they take it, Captain?" Commander Rodriguez asked. Chen allowed herself a small smile. "About as well as expected. They'll negotiate. They have to." "And if they don't?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Then we'll remind them why. Humanity spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment." She looked out at the stars where somewhere in the darkness the council was beginning to understand that they were no longer the only power in their corner of the galaxy. Chapter 4. The meeting at Kepler Station hung in the void like a massive metal flower, its 5 arms extending outward from a central hub. Each arm contained docking facilities for different atmospheric and gravitational requirements, making it the perfect neutral ground for interspecies diplomacy. The station had served this purpose for over 50 years, facilitating trade and communication between civilizations that might otherwise never interact. High Commander Veltar arrived aboard the Council's flagship, Unity's Strength, accompanied by the most experienced diplomatic team the Council could assemble. As their shuttle approached the station, he studied intelligence reports that had arrived over the past week. The news was not encouraging. "Sir," Diplomatic Advisor Kethanara reported, "we've confirmed that at least 7 independent species have established formal relations with humanity in the past 6 months. The Altarian Republic signed a mutual non-aggression pact. The Centauri Alliance has entered into a technology-sharing agreement." Veltar's mandibles clicked in frustration. 7 species. How did they make contact with so many civilizations without our knowledge? "Their ships appear to be completely undetectable when they choose to be," Fleet Admiral Zexara added from the tactical station. "Our best sensors can only track them when they want to be seen." The shuttle docked with Kepler Station, and Veltar's team made their way through the corridors toward Conference Room Alpha. The station's administrator, an elderly Kepler native named Huxaro, greeted them personally. "High Commander," Huxaro said, his 6 arms gesturing welcomingly. "The human delegation arrived yesterday. They've been impressive guests." "Impressive how?" Veltar asked. "Their ship docked without any of our sensors detecting its approach. The first we knew of their arrival was when they requested permission to come aboard." Huxaro paused. "Also, they've been very generous with the station's crew. They shared some remarkable food synthesizer technology." Even here, Veltar thought, the humans were making friends and demonstrating superior technology. The conference room was circular, with a large holographic display at the center and seating arranged to accommodate 12 different species' physical requirements. Captain Chen was already there along with 2 other humans Veltar didn't recognize. One was an older human with gray hair and a formal diplomatic bearing. The other appeared younger and wore what might have been a military uniform. "High Commander Veltar," Chen stood as they entered. "Thank you for coming. Allow me to introduce Ambassador Marcus Thompson, our Chief Diplomatic Representative, and Colonel Elena Vasquez, our military liaison." Veltar took his designated seat, flanked by his diplomatic team. The seating arrangement put the 2 groups directly across from each other, with the central display between them. "Captain Chen," Veltar began, "before we discuss any agreements, the Council requires better understanding of humanity's capabilities and intentions." Ambassador Thompson leaned forward. "Of course, High Commander. Transparency is essential for successful diplomacy." He activated a small device, and the central display lit up with star charts. "Humanity originated in the Sol system, approximately 47 light-years from your nearest territory," Thompson explained. "We achieved faster-than-light travel roughly 3 centuries ago, and have been expanding steadily since then." The star chart showed human territory, a sphere of influence encompassing nearly 200 star systems. Veltar felt his confidence drop another notch. The Council controlled 17 systems. Humanity controlled more than 10 times that number. 200 systems? Diplomatic Advisor Kethanara asked. her voice barely concealing her shock. 237, actually, Colonel Vasquez corrected, with colonies on over 400 worlds. The council delegation exchanged stunned glances. They had assumed humanity was a single-system species, perhaps with a few colonies. The reality was staggering. "How large is your population?" Fleet Admiral Zexara asked. "Approximately 800 billion humans across all our worlds," Thompson replied matter-of-factly. The number was so large that Veltar couldn't immediately process it. The entire council population, all 12 species combined, numbered around 60 billion beings. "High Commander," Captain Chen interrupted gently, "I believe these numbers concern you. Let me assure you that humanity has no territorial ambitions regarding council space. We're focused on expansion into unclaimed regions." "But you do have expansion plans," Veltar said. "Of course, any growing civilization requires new resources and Lebensraum." Thompson manipulated the display to show projected human expansion routes. "However, our planned expansion corridors don't intersect with current council territory." Veltar studied the projections. The human expansion routes curved around council space like water flowing around a stone. But some of the target areas were systems the council had designated for future expansion. "Several of these systems are marked for council development," he pointed out. "Were marked," Chen corrected. "We've already established colonies in 12 of those systems. The inhabitants welcomed our assistance in developing their worlds." "Without council approval," Fleet Admiral Zexara said, her voice sharp. "Colonel." Vasquez spoke for the first time, her tone professional but firm. "Fleet Admiral, humanity doesn't require council approval for establishing colonies in unclaimed space, just as the council doesn't require human approval for your activities." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. For 2 centuries, the council had operated under the assumption that they were the supreme authority in this region. The concept of an equal power simply didn't fit their worldview. "Captain Chen," Veltar said carefully, "what exactly are you proposing?" Ambassador Thompson activated a new display showing a formal document. "We propose a mutual recognition treaty. Humanity and the Council would acknowledge each other's sovereignty over current territories and agree to formal protocols for resolving future disputes." "And if the Council declines this treaty?" Veltar asked. Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes grew colder. "High Commander, we hope that won't be necessary. But humanity didn't become the dominant species in our region by avoiding difficult conversations." Diplomatic advisor Kethnara leaned forward. "Captain Chen, your tone suggests consequences if we don't agree to your terms." "Not consequences," Chen replied. "Clarifications. If the Council attempts to enforce its authority over human worlds or interfere with our expansion, we'll respond appropriately." "That sounds like a threat," Fleet Admiral Zexara said. Colonel Vasquez answered this time. "Fleet Admiral, it's a statement of fact. Humanity has invested 3 centuries preparing for contact with galactic civilizations. We're prepared for any response, from complete cooperation to active hostility." "3 centuries?" Veltar asked. "You've been preparing for contact that long?" Ambassador Thompson nodded. "High Commander, we detected Council communications and activities decades ago. We've been monitoring galactic civilization development while building our own capabilities. We wanted to ensure that when first contact occurred, humanity would be negotiating from a position of strength." The admission stunned the Council delegation. Everything about this meeting had been planned decades in advance. The humans had been watching, learning, and preparing while the Council remained completely unaware of their existence. "What do you know about our activities?" Veltar asked quietly. "Everything," Chen replied simply. "We know about your expansion, protocols, your enforcement methods, your political structure, your military capabilities, and your long-term strategic plans." She gestured to the display, which updated to show detailed Council military formations, base locations, and fleet movements. Information that should have been classified at the highest levels. "We also know about your recent internal political challenges," Thompson added. The growing dissatisfaction among outer system colonies, the resource disputes between member species, and the military budget crisis that's been classified for the past 2 years. Veltar felt the last of his bargaining power evaporate. The humans knew everything about the Council's weaknesses, while remaining completely mysterious themselves. "High Commander," Chen said, her voice softening slightly. "We understand this is difficult. Your entire political system is built on the assumption of Council supremacy, but the galaxy is larger and more complex than any single organization can control. What you're proposing would change everything," Veltar said. "Yes," Thompson agreed. "It would establish a new balance of power in this region, multiple civilizations, working together rather than one dominant authority." Colonel Vasquez activated another display showing the broader galactic situation. "High Commander, humanity has established relationships with 47 different species across this sector. We've formed mutual defense agreements, trade partnerships, and cultural exchange programs." 47 species? Diplomatic advisor Kethnara whispered. "The galaxy is full of life, advisor. Most species prefer cooperation to conquest." Chen paused. "The Council's expansion model is becoming obsolete." Veltar looked around at his diplomatic team. Every face showed the same expression of overwhelmed uncertainty. Everything they had known about their place in the galaxy had been turned upside down. "We'll need time to consider these proposals," he said finally. "Of course," Thompson replied. "However, we should mention that several Council member species have already approached us about establishing independent relationships." The final revelation hit like a physical blow. Not only was humanity negotiating with external species, but they were also communicating with Council members directly. "Which species?" Fleet Admiral Zexara demanded. Chen's slight smile returned. "That would be telling, wouldn't it? Let's just say that not everyone is satisfied with current Council policies." As the meeting adjourned, Veltar realized that the Council faced a choice: adapt to a new galactic reality, or risk being left behind by history. The humans had given them something to think about indeed. Epilogue: The New Galaxy 6 months. After the meeting at Kepler Station, the galaxy looked very different. The Mutual Recognition Treaty had been signed after intensive negotiations, establishing humanity and the Galactic Council as co-equal powers in the region. The signing ceremony took place aboard Kepler Station, with representatives from over 30 species in attendance. High Commander Veltar stood on the observation deck of the newly renamed Galactic Cooperation Station, watching human and Council ships docked side by side. The sight still amazed him. 6 months ago, the Council had been the undisputed authority in this region. Now they were partners in a much larger galactic community. "Remarkable, isn't it?" Captain Chen's voice came from behind him. Veltar turned to see the human captain approaching. She wore civilian clothes rather than her military uniform, having been appointed as humanity's first galactic ambassador. Excuse me, Ambassador Chen," Veltar corrected himself. "Yes, it is remarkable. Sometimes I wonder if we made the right choice." "Having second thoughts?" Chen asked, joining him at the observation window. "Not second thoughts exactly, but adjustment has been challenging." Veltar gestured toward the docking bays. 3 Council member species have established independent relationships with humanity. 2 others are considering leaving the Council entirely. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Change is always difficult. But consider the alternatives we avoided." Veltar knew she was right. Intelligence reports suggested that humanity's military capabilities were even more extensive than they'd initially revealed. The Council's military analysts estimated that humanity could have conquered their territory within weeks if they'd chosen hostility over diplomacy. "How many ships do you actually have?" Veltar asked. Chen smiled. "Enough, High Commander. Let's leave it at that." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the bustling activity of the station. Human and Council personnel worked together on joint projects. Trade ships from dozens of species came and went freely. Cultural exchange programs brought beings together who would never have met under the old system. "Ambassador," Veltar said, "may I ask you something personal?" Of course. When you first approached our fleet with the humanity's will, were you prepared to fight if we'd refused to negotiate? Chen considered the question carefully. High Commander, humanity spent 3 centuries preparing for contact with galactic civilization. We considered every possible scenario, from immediate friendship to total war, and we were prepared for any outcome, but we sincerely hoped it wouldn't come to violence. Veltar nodded. The answer confirmed what he'd suspected. Humanity had approached first contact with overwhelming force but preferred diplomatic solutions. It was a remarkably sophisticated approach. What happens now? He asked. Chen turned from the window to face him directly. Now we build something better, High Commander. The old model of single-power dominance is ending across the galaxy. Humanity has made contact with over 300 species in the past year alone. Most prefer cooperation to conquest. 300? Veltar felt that familiar sensation of his worldview expanding again. The galaxy is vast and full of life, High Commander, far more complex than any single organization can manage. Chen paused, watching a human cargo vessel dock alongside a council transport. We're establishing what we call the Galactic Cooperation Network, voluntary associations between species for trade, defense, scientific research, and cultural exchange. And the Council's role in this network? Whatever role you choose to take. The Council has valuable experience in multi-species cooperation. Your diplomatic protocols and trade regulations have served this region well for 2 centuries. Veltar appreciated the diplomatic phrasing, though. They both knew the Council's diplomatic protocols had often involved military coercion. Ambassador, there's something I must ask. The other powers in this region, the Altarian Republic, the Centauri Alliance, the Independent Worlds, how do they view this new arrangement? Chen's expression grew more serious. Honestly, most are relieved. The Council's expansion policies created significant anxiety among neighboring civilizations. Many species were preparing for eventual conflict. Preparing how? Military buildups, defensive alliances, resource stockpiling. The galaxy was heading toward a period of significant instability. Chen gestured toward the station's central hub, where beings from dozens of species worked together. This cooperative model offers an alternative to that future. Veltar watched a group of young beings from various species collaborating on what appeared to be a scientific project. Council youth, human students, Altarian researchers, and others he didn't recognize, all working together with enthusiasm that transcended species boundaries. Ambassador, may I share something with you? Please. When I first encountered your ship 6 months ago, I thought it was the end of everything we'd built, the Council, our authority, our way of life. And now? Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Now I think it might have been the beginning of something better. Chen smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. High Commander, that's exactly what we hoped you'd discover. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Chen activated a small communication device. Ambassador Chen, this is Captain Rodriguez aboard the Humanity's Will. We're receiving communications from the Outer Rim sectors. 3 new species are requesting contact with the Cooperation Network. Acknowledged, Captain. Begin standard, first contact protocols and schedule diplomatic meetings. As she closed the connection, Veltar shook his head in amazement. Standard first contact protocols? How many species have you made contact with? This month? About 15 new civilizations? Chen's casual tone made the number even more stunning. Humanity has been expanding our diplomatic reach while the Council adapted to the new arrangements. 15 species in 1 month, Veltar repeated. The Council made contact with 3 new species in the past decade. Different approaches. High Commander, we actively seek out new civilizations for peaceful contact. The Council waited for species to develop space travel and approach your territory. Because we assumed any species advanced enough for space travel might be a threat. Exactly. It's a fundamental philosophical difference. We believe diversity makes civilization stronger. The more perspectives and capabilities we include, the more problems we can solve. Veltar considered this. The Council had always viewed other species as potential competitors or subjects for incorporation. The human approach treated them as potential partners. Ambassador, what would have happened if we'd chosen to fight rather than negotiate? Chen was quiet for a long time, and when she answered, her voice carried a note of sadness. High Commander, humanity has survived 3 centuries of expansion by being prepared for every possibility. If the Council had chosen violence, we would have defended ourselves effectively. How effectively? The 17 ships you encountered represented approximately 1% of humanity's active fleet. The number hit Veltar like a physical blow. 1%. They had been intimidated by 1% of humanity's military capability. How many ships do you have? He asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Enough to ensure humanity's survival and protect our allies, Chen replied diplomatically. A new alarm chimed, and this time it was Veltar's communication device. He activated it to find Fleet Admiral Zexara's image. High Commander, we're receiving reports from across Council space. Unknown vessels are appearing near several of our outer colonies. They're requesting permission to make contact. Unknown vessels? Veltar asked. Sir, they appear to be from species we've never encountered. They're citing the new cooperation network protocols and requesting diplomatic meetings. Veltar looked at Chen, who smiled knowingly. Ambassador, did you... Word travels fast in the galaxy, High Commander. Once species learn that peaceful coexistence is possible, they become much more interested in making contact. Fleet Admiral, Veltar said into his communicator, grant the requests and begin diplomatic protocols. Coordinate with Ambassador Chen's people for proper introduction procedures. Yes, sir. High Commander, there's something else. These new species are offering advanced technologies in exchange for cooperative agreements. Medical research, agricultural, techniques, energy systems we've never seen before. After closing the connection, Veltar turned back to Chen. The galaxy is changing faster than I can comprehend. High Commander, the galaxy was always this complex. Humanity simply made it visible. For centuries, species have been isolated, afraid to make contact because they assumed any advanced civilization would be hostile. Like we were. The Council's expansion model wasn't inherently evil, but it did create fear. When species learned that alternatives existed, they became eager to participate. Veltar watched the activity outside the observation window with new understanding. The bustling cooperation he saw wasn't just the result of the recent treaty. It was the natural state of galactic civilization when fear was removed from the equation. Ambassador, I have one final question. Yes? When humanity first detected Council communications decades ago, you could have approached us then. Why did you wait? Chen's expression grew thoughtful. Because we weren't ready, and neither were you. Humanity needed time to develop our capabilities and build relationships with other species. The Council needed time to encounter limitations to your expansion model. You waited for us to be ready for change. We waited for the galaxy to be ready for change. First contact is too important to rush. As if summoned by their conversation, Captain Rodriguez appeared at the observation deck entrance. Ambassador, excuse the interruption. We're receiving a priority communication from Earth. What's the situation, Captain? Ma'am, the Galactic Senate has approved the Expansion Cooperation Accord. 17 more species have joined the network in the past week, including some from beyond our previous contact range. Galactic Senate? Veltar asked. Chen turned to him with that diplomatic smile. High Commander, there are some aspects of galactic civilization we haven't discussed yet. Perhaps it's time for a longer conversation about humanity's role in the broader galaxy. As they walked toward the conference rooms, Veltar realized that everything he'd learned about humanity in the past 6 months might be just the beginning. The galaxy was far larger, more complex, and more interconnected than the Council had ever imagined. Behind them, through the observation windows, ships from dozens of species continued their dance of cooperation and trade. The age of isolated civilizations was ending, and something unprecedented was beginning. The galaxy would never be the same. And as Veltar followed Ambassador Chen toward another revelation about humanity's true scope and influence, he found himself looking forward to the future for the first time in years. The universe, it seemed, was full of possibilities he'd never dared to imagine. End of story.